China has reiterated its opposition to the deployment of this THAAD system. Have a listen.
The
U.S. deployment of the THAAD system in South Korea can't resolve the safety concerns of the related parties. China firmly opposes this move and will take the necessary measures to safeguard its national security interests and regional strategic balance. We strongly urge the U.S. and South Korea to face the legitimate concerns of countries including China and stop the process of deployment.
Meanwhile, the Defense Ministry stressed its resolve when it says that it would consider countermeasures against a U.S. move. Spokesman Yang Yujun said that Beijing will pay close attention to the developments and will consider taking necessary actions to protect national security and maintain the current regional military balance.
We turn next to a deadly police shooting tonight. This time, a 6-year-old boy with autism is now dead. 2 deputy marshals are facing charges for firing at an SUV after a 2-mile chase. In the passenger seat, that 6-year-old boy who did not survive. The state police chief now calling the video the most disturbing thing he's seen. Here's ABC's Lindsay Davis.
The public is now getting its first look at this graphic video from a police body camera that captures 2 deputy city marshals firing at this car, killing 6-year-old Jeremy Martis and critically wounding his father, Christopher Few. The footage from Louisiana last November is now evidence in the murder cases against the 2 deputies, Derek Stafford and Norris Greenhouse Jr. The first grader, who was autistic, was with his father when the SUV they were in was shot at multiple times by officers. It's still not clear why they were pursuing the car in the first place. The deputies begin shooting before the audio begins, but we see the officer shoot at Few while his hands are raised.
I don't know who I'm firing.
Defense attorneys argue Few drove recklessly while leading officers on a 2-mile chase and then rammed into Greenhouse's car. But neither testimony from a state detective nor the newly released video indicates evidence of that. Stafford and Greenhouse now await separate trials on second-degree murder and attempted second-degree murder charges. David?
Lindsay Davis tonight.
Passenger train barreled right into the Hoboken station.
And you see these pictures showing the devastation at the scene. And there are some reports that people are still trapped. Now, here's what we know right now. A train crashed into the New Jersey Hoboken station just before 9 a.m. during rush hour. More than 100 people are thought to be injured. Passengers are being evacuated. Service is now suspended in and out of the Hoboken terminal, and investigators are heading to the scene. This crash taking place just 7 miles outside of New York City, and the train hitting right between the waiting area and the platform, George.
Right into the station. We want to go to ABC's Brad Milkey on the phone. And Brad, you're about a block away from the station?
That's right, George. The streets are just littered with ambulances and fire trucks right now, not just from Hoboken, but from surrounding towns. I just spoke to a woman who was in the first car on that train. She said that she was texting, minding her business, didn't notice anything unusual, and all of a sudden the train crashed into the platform ahead of it. She said people went flying across the car, and that's when she started to see the blood, the carnage. She said she saw a woman's legs that looked like they had been severed. The conductor came out of that first car. His face was bloodied, and she said people were screaming. The lights were dark. It was terrifying, and that's when emergency workers at the station found her and started escorting people out of that car, George.
And Brad, do you know if there are people still trapped? We've heard some of those reports, people still trapped inside the station.
Not that I've seen, but we've seen people now loaded into ambulances, and so they're being taken away from the scene. We're not able to tell if there's people still there, but this woman that I was speaking to said that it was just unbelievable, sort of the human devastation that she's seen. She says that there are likely still people there just because of how many people there were to attend to.
Right, more than 100 injured. That is the first report. Brad,
and it's the search for a motive in that school shooting in South Carolina where a teenager is suspected of fatally shooting his father at home and then opening fire at an elementary school playground where 2 students, one of them 6 years old, and a teacher were wounded. NBC's Gabe Gutierrez is there. Gabe, good morning to you.
Savannah, good morning. Overnight, the suspected gunman was questioned at length, and we are hearing incredible stories of survival and heroism. It was an unarmed volunteer firefighter who took the suspect down and teachers who prevented him from getting inside the building.
This morning, a desperate search for a motive after shots rang out at recess.
Town will full ride
law enforcement in reference to possible shooting.
At Townville Elementary in South Carolina, police say a 14-year-old opened fire, wounding 2 students and a teacher before an unarmed volunteer firefighter stepped in and tackled him.
We got a gun on the playground. We're going to try to keep everyone away from here.
First, police say the teenager shot his father at a home 2 miles away. Then at 1:44 p.m., they say he called his grandmother in tears.
She could not make out what he was saying because he was crying and upset.
A minute later, police say the young gunman had already driven up to the school's parking lot near the playground, gotten out, walked toward the school, and started shooting. The superintendent says one class was at recess. A teacher, Megan Hollingsworth, was hit in the shoulder. She and other employees rushed students inside and locked the doors.
Courage. I mean, these teachers and staff members love those children, and they put their lives on the line to protect them.
This morning, 6-year-old Jacob Hall is in critical condition after being shot in the leg. The teacher and another student who were injured have been treated and released. What do investigators think is the motive here?
We really don't have any information right now.
This community shaken as terrified parents scramble to pick up their kids. Jamie Meredith's daughter is in kindergarten.
She just told me they went to the bathroom, but she was glad she didn't get shot. I'm just so scared. I don't even want her to go to school now.
Police have not identified the 14-year-old suspected gunman. It's unclear what connection, if any, he had to the school. Now, classes here remain canceled for the rest of the week, and authorities are crediting active shooter drills they had practiced beforehand with saving lives. Matt and Savannah.
Wow. Gabe Gutierrez, thank you very much. At least 3 dead, perhaps as many as 100 injured in this train crash. Took place at a commuter station just outside of New York City, just across the river. Would have been crowded, rush hour, a packed train, we expect. And we're just starting to learn about what may have caused that. And of course, the big question at this hour, Matt, is whether or not the engineer survived and whether or not officials have been able to talk to him, if so.
Right, exactly. Tom Costello is headed to the scene right now. Tom, you talked to us earlier and you said that you don't believe this section of track has that train control system technology, but isn't there something called, for a lack of a better term, a dead man's pedal in the engineer's compartment, where if something happens medically to that person and that engineer becomes incapacitated, the foot and the pressure comes off that pedal and it slows the train?
Absolutely. And I think that just adds to the mystery here, Matt. So you're absolutely right. The engineer has to have his foot on the pedal, his weight on that dead man's switch, or pedal, if you will. And the idea being, if he has a heart attack and falls over, then the weight would shift off the pedal and the train would come to a stop. However, if he slumps forward, it's possible he could still maintain the weight on the pedal. All the more reason why, advocates say it's critical that these trains today, these lines, put in positive train control. And we know that there was no positive train control on this particular stretch of New Jersey Transit. And in fact, New Jersey Transit has, to my knowledge, not implemented this system-wide yet, and they're a little bit behind in trying to implement it.
Let's take a look at this. Heavy rains and winds. That's Tropical Storm Matthew. Is hitting the Caribbean hard right now. And it's got a lot of people in the Southeast watching this morning. Ginger, where is Matthew heading?
Matthew is headed west first and then due north. I'll show you the path in just a moment. But at least one person is dead. That was in St. Vincent, actually crushed by a boulder in a landslide. You can see the turbulent ocean there. The Barbados, the Caribbean doesn't always look like that. Certainly doesn't look like this in the backyard with a pool there. This is 65-mile-per-hour max sustained winds at this point. It is moving west at about 16 miles per hour. It's got a lot of warm water to fuel this storm, and as it's a tropical storm, it looks like it'll become a hurricane as we start the weekend, go through Sunday, and then some upper level forcing will start to force it northward. The farther it goes east, the better for us. A lot of the computer models are taking it out here in the ocean. That would be a great track. If it goes west, we'll be talking about it next midweek. George.
Okay, thank you, Jim.